Hello scholars, welcome to Dakshinai classroom. Today we are going to discuss something called de Broglie hypothesis. This will be your third lecture of dual nature of radiation and matter. So until now we have seen that by the early 20th century, around 1905 Albert Einstein gave his equation. By the early 20th century it was established that light is neither wave nor particle but both. It can behave like a wave in Young's double slit experiment. It can also behave like a particle in photoelectric effect experiments. So it was established that light behaves like a particle or like a wave depending upon whichever experiment you are performing. So around 1924, there was a young French physicist named Louis de Broglie. Louis de Broglie took this idea that light, which was supposed to be a wave, can also behave like a particle. He took this idea and applied this on a matter particles like cricket ball, electron, proton, neutron, me, you, this marker, everything. He took the idea of a wave behaving like a particle and applied that on particles. So in this chapter, in this lecture, we are going to talk about de Broglie hypothesis. What was his idea and what are the implications of that idea and how we can solve everyday phenomenon we can observe, or how we can apply that idea on small particles. So let us first take a look at what are the topics which I am going to cover in today's lecture. So first topic which we will talk about is what actually is de Broglie hypothesis. So what did he say? That we will discuss in the first topic. After we have discussed de Broglie hypothesis, we will see what is the wavelength of matter waves. We will see what is matter wave. We will discuss. Don't worry. Right now I am just stating what are the topics which I am going to cover. We will discuss what is matter wave. And the third topic which we will discuss is wavelength of charged particles. Charged particles when accelerated through a potential difference. This is the third topic which we will discuss, and in the end we will see what is the wavelength of gas molecules. In the air, a lot of gas molecules are there. Nitrogen is there, oxygen is there, hydrogen is there. So what can be wavelength of gas molecules? That we will discuss fourth and last topic. So in that order we will cover the topics in today's lecture. So first thing first, let us talk about what actually is de Broglie hypothesis. So we are studying dual nature of radiation and matter. So in the early 20th century, when everybody was still digesting the idea that light can also behave like a particle, French scientist Louis de Broglie, his name was Louis de Broglie. Sometimes you also read it as Louis de Broglie, but that is not the pronunciation, that is de Broglie. So around 1924, Louis de Broglie took the idea that wave can behave like a particle, radiation can behave like a particle, and he applied it to a matter particle like electron or proton or a cricket ball. So what was his hypothesis? His hypothesis was that since wave can behave like particle, radiation which is a wave can behave like a particle, particles can also behave like wave. That was his hypothesis. What do we write? What was the statement of his hypothesis? The statement was that every moving particle, if it is a moving, it has a wave nature. So what actually is de Broglie hypothesis? You can write it as in simplest words that every moving particle, does not matter what particle it is can be a marker, it can be me, it can be you. Every moving particle has a wave nature. That is the whole of the hypothesis. Now, why do we call it hypothesis? Why we are not calling it as theory or law like Newton's laws of motion? It is a law. Why do we call it hypothesis? We call it hypothesis because when de Broglie gave this idea that any particle which is moving has a wave nature, he did not give any explanation. He did not give any mathematical proof. He did not give any practical observation. He just stated that since wave can behave like a particle, so particles can also behave like wave. That was his hypothesis. Why not? If wave can behave like particle, then particles can also behave like wave. That was the hypothesis. So when Louis de Broglie said that every moving particle has a wave nature, people obviously asked him, okay, if every moving particle is a wave, then tell me what is its wavelength. Now what exactly de Broglie meant when he said every moving particle has a wave nature? So let us say there is a wave on a rope. It is moving like this. Or there is a radiation wave. But if I throw a ball, how it can be wave? So assume it like this. A ball is here. And when you throw it in this direction with a speed of 50 meters per second, let's say, then the ball will move like this. And there will be a wavelength. But overall, ball is moving in this direction with 50 meters per second. So the ball is particle, but is also moving like a wave. So every moving particle will have a wave nature. So if you are describing the wave nature of a matter particle, like a cricket ball, electron, proton, me, you, this duster, marker. So if you are describing wave nature of a matter particle, then that wave will be known as your matter wave, because you are describing wave nature of a matter particle. Now, so people obviously asked Louis de Broglie, what is the wavelength of your matter wave? At least tell me something, because you cannot just say that this particle behaves like a wave. I don't know anything else. You have to tell something. So we have already seen that particles of light, which are photons also have some momentum. What was the momentum of photon? Momentum of photon, P, can be written as h, Planck's constant, divided by lambda. Lambda is the wavelength of photon. So here lambda can also be written as h divided by p, which is the momentum of photon. So what Louis de Broglie did is, Louis de Broglie did take this equation that lambda is the wavelength of photon if it has a momentum p. Then he said that similar to the momentum of photon, if matter particles have a momentum p, then their wavelength can also be written as lambda is h by p, where h is your Planck's constant and p is the momentum of any particle. For example, here you write it as de Broglie wavelength. This was called de Broglie wavelength. So his hypothesis was very simple, no complications. His hypothesis was very simple, that since radiation can behave like particles, so do particles can behave like radiation or wave. And what he did is, he took the momentum of photon like this and said that same thing is applicable on matter also. So that lambda, which is Planck's constant divided by momentum of the particle, will be known as de Broglie wavelength, or that is the wavelength of matter wave, where p is the momentum. You can write as here, h is Planck's constant, which is 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second, and your p can be written as mass of the particle multiplied by speed of the particle. Now to further illustrate this point, you see, if de Broglie said that every moving particle has a wave nature, so we must be able to see these waves in the day-to-day life, right? So let us take an example. We do not see, for example, you are running on the road. Do you behave like a wave? No. You throw a cricket ball. Can you see the wave nature of cricket ball? No. So why do we not experience these matter waves in day-to-day life? To illustrate, let us take an example. So in the example, let us say कि one of your student, take any student in your class. There is a student whose mass is 50 kg. There is a student whose mass is 50 kg. And he is running with a speed of 10 meter per second, which is actually a very high speed for a human being. Usain Bolts run around 11 meter per second. So for a human being, 10 meter per second is very high speed. Okay. So when one of your classmates weighing 50 kg is running at 10 meter per second, then we should be able to see his wavelength. Then according to Louis de Broglie, let us calculate what should be his wavelength. So what should be his wavelength? According to Louis de Broglie, lambda must be equal to Planck's constant divided by momentum of the particle. It can be any particle. So the person, your classmate, he is also a particle, matter particle. So he is running. So h value is 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second in ISI units. Now P is momentum. Momentum is how much? Mass is 50 kg. Velocity is 10 meters per second. So that will be 500 kg meter per second, like this. And if you solve this, what will be the answer? See, this will be 0, 0, 10 to the power minus 36. So this will be around how much? 1.32 into 10 to the power minus 36 meter. That will be wavelength of your student, your classmate. Now if this is the wavelength, if you observe here, it is 10 to the power minus 36, which is a very small wavelength. It is so small wavelength that you cannot measure this wavelength with any known instrument. We do not have an instrument sophisticated enough to measure this wavelength. And that is the reason why we do not observe the wave nature of day-to-day particles. Day-to-day particle like 50 kg boy running at 10 meter per second. We do not observe. Even if you take a 1 kg ball, or let us say 100 gram ball, and throw it at 1000 meter per second, then also it will be like something 10 to the power minus 30. That is very small. So in day-to-day life, wave nature of the particle is there, but the wavelength is so small that you do not observe this. You cannot measure that wavelength. So if anybody asks कि a person is moving, is he exhibiting wave nature? Of course he is exhibiting. What was de Broglie hypothesis? Any moving particle moving with any speed, if you have momentum, you have wave nature. So any moving particle, any speed exhibits wave nature. It is another matter that in day-to-day life, in day-to-day objects, you cannot measure those wavelengths. So in day-to-day life, the wave nature of the particle is insignificant. For example, my wave nature is insignificant. If I throw this marker, its wave nature will be insignificant, and that is why you can treat this marker or me or yourself as a particle. You can ignore the wave property of day-to-day objects. So if we cannot use wave nature of day-to-day objects, then where we can see the wave nature of the particle, or where do wave nature of the particle becomes significant? To understand where does wave nature of particle become significant, let us take another example. Let us take an electron, very small particle. Electron is the very small, one of the smallest particles. So let us take another example. An electron, mass of electron is how much? 9.1 into 10 to the power minus of 31 kg. That is the mass of one electron. And let us assume that an electron is traveling at a speed of around 2.2 into 10 to the power 6 meter per second in a Bohr orbit. Bohr orbit is, electron is orbiting around nucleus. So in a nuclear orbit, speed of electron is very high, 2.2 into 10 to the power 6 meter per second, very high speed. So at this high speed, let us see what is the wavelength of the electron. So what should be wavelength? Lambda must be equal to Planck's constant divided by momentum p. So what is Planck's constant? 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 divided by p, mass times speed. So 9.1 into 2.2 into 10 to the power minus 31, which and plus 6. So that will be 10 to the power minus 25. When you solve this, you will get around 2.2 angstrom. Angstrom is 10 to the power minus 10. So 2.2 into 10 to the power minus 10. Now remember, this wavelength is still very small. You cannot observe this wavelength with naked eyes. But when you work at the subatomic level, when you talk about the physics of subatomic particles like electrons, protons, neutrons, quarks and so on, at that level, this wavelength is no longer insignificant. That level, this wavelength becomes significant. It has some meaning. That way electron behaves like a wave. You must have studied quantum model of atoms like s, p, d, f orbitals you have studied. Those are the based on wave nature of electrons. So at the subatomic level, wave nature of the matter particle becomes significant. There you cannot ignore the wave nature of electron. But in day-to-day life, you can ignore the wave nature of yourself, me, marker, duster, moving car, anything. In day-to-day life, you can ignore. At subatomic level, you cannot ignore the wave nature of particles. Now remember, de Broglie had not offered any mathematical or practical proof for his hypothesis. He calculated the wavelength of electron, but he did not offer any proof that electron behaves like a wave. So it was only later that Davison and Germer and Young's double slit experiment was performed, which ultimately proved that okay, electron can also behave like a wave. So that is why de Broglie, it is called a hypothesis, not a theory, because de Broglie himself did not offer any mathematical or practical proof whatsoever. So in order to further illustrate, let us solve one more question. After this, we will move on. So one more question. You have an electron and de Broglie wavelength of electron is given as 2.8 angstrom. Lambda of electron is given as 2.8 angstrom, which is 10 to the power minus 10. So it is saying that find momentum and kinetic energy of that electron. So it is reverse. You are already given with wavelength. You have to find the momentum. Very easy question. What you can say? Sir, lambda equals Planck's constant divided by momentum. That is the crux of de Broglie hypothesis. Now, so momentum can be written as Planck constant divided by lambda. Now Planck's constant is 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 divided by lambda. Lambda is given as 2.8 angstrom. So it will be 2.8 into 10 to the power minus 10 meter. And your answer will be 2.4 into 10 to the power minus 24. Momentum is kg meter per second. That will be your momentum. So if you observe, this is a very small momentum. So electrons have very small momentum, but at the subatomic level their wavelength is significant. Now if you want to calculate the kinetic energy of that electron, so how you can write? You already know that what is kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is half mv square, which can also be written as mv whole square divided by 2 times m, which is nothing but p square divided by twice of m. That is the kinetic energy. So if this is the kinetic energy, momentum you already know, and mass of the electron you already know. So here you can write p square, 2.4 square multiplied by 10 to the power minus 48, this square, divided by 2 times mass. What is 2 times mass? 2 into 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31. This is the mass of one electron. So this will come out to be approximately 3 into 10 to the power minus 18 joule. So here you see that kinetic energy of the electron is also very small. So at the subatomic level, de Broglie wavelength becomes significant. So we have talked about that wavelength of matter particles is only significant at subatomic level, and the easiest subatomic particle which we know of is electrons. Now electron is a charged particle, and when you perform the Young's double slit experiment with electron, you actually see that the electron is showing wave nature. But how do we calculate the wavelength of a charged particle? For example, a charged particle is moving. How do we calculate? So let us say that there is an electric field like this. You can accelerate a charged particle through an electric field. So what you will say? There is an electric field. Now let us say an electron moves from point A to point B in this electric field. In that electric field, electron moved like this from here to here. Or actually electron will be accelerated in a direction opposite to the field. Okay. But any charged particle we will talk about, then we will see electron. So if a charged particle moved from here to here, then if you remember, if you move in an electric field, then there is a potential difference between point A and B, unless and until you move perpendicular to the field. If you are moving parallel or any direction except perpendicular to the field, then there will be a potential difference between point A and point B. So if the electron moves from point A, or any charged particle moves from point A to point B, then there is a potential difference. So you can say work done by the field on the charged particle will be how much? You can say work done by the field on that charge particle will be how much? Charge, quantity of charge on that charge particle multiplied by potential difference from point A to B. If there is a potential difference VB minus VA as V, charge is Q, then this is the work done by the electric field on that charge particle. Now remember, this work done is internal force or external force? By the internal or external? Here electric field will be the external force for that charge particle. Okay? And if you remember work energy power chapter, what is work energy theorem? Work energy theorem is work done by all the external forces, all the forces is how much? Change in kinetic energy. So here this is work done. The work done must be equal to change in kinetic energy of that charge particle. So this work done can also be written as kinetic energy. Now remember, this kinetic energy is actually change in kinetic energy, not kinetic energy. You must write it as delta kinetic energy. Now if we assume that initially particle was at rest, initial velocity of particle was 0 meter per second, final velocity is V. Don't write V because you may get confused with potential. So final kinetic energy is this. Now remember, we want wavelength of that charge particle, and if we want wavelength, we need momentum because according to Louis de Broglie, wavelength is nothing but Planck's constant divided by momentum. Now see, we had just seen that in any case kinetic energy may also be written as P square divided by twice of mass. That is the equation. We want momentum. So from here I can also write this as P equals under root of 2 times mass times kinetic energy. Is that correct? Correct? Okay. So now we want wavelength of that charge particle. So here I can write lambda equals h divided by P. And what is P? P is this quantity. So write it as root over of twice mass and times kinetic energy. And what is kinetic energy? Q times potential difference. So write it as Q times V. So this will be the wavelength of your charge particle if it was accelerated through a potential difference of how much? V volt. Now this charge particle can be anything. It can be electron, it can be a proton, it can be any metal ion, it can be hydrogen ion, it can be any charge particle. But if you accelerate through a potential difference V, mass of that charge particle is m, h is Planck's constant, then you get wavelength of that charge particle. Now there is a special case. What is the special case? Electrons. If you take, you should write this down. This is you have to take as note. So if you take the case of an electron, electron is also a charge particle. So if you take the case of an electron, then what is the value? So let us calculate. This is our final equation, so we will not erase that. Rest we can erase. Now for an electron, what will be the value for an electron? Here you can say lambda equals, h is Planck's constant, 6.626 into 10 to the power minus 34 divided by under root of 2 times mass of an electron. What is the mass of an electron? 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg. What is charge on an electron? Charge on electron is 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. Remember, I am writing everything in ISI units. So charge is coulomb multiplied by potential difference. Potential difference you can vary. Here you cannot vary mass of electron. You cannot vary charge on electron. You cannot vary Planck's constant. Only thing you can vary is potential difference through which you are accelerating your electron. So if you calculate this, you will get this as lambda as approximately 12.27. 12.27 divided by under root of potential difference angstrom, which is 10 to the power minus 10 meter. So lambda will be this much. Or you can also write it as approximately equal to under root of 150 by V angstrom. Now remember, this is only the case when you are taking electron. This is specifically for what? For electrons, not for any other particle. You cannot apply this for a proton. You cannot apply this for a helium ion. For different ions, you can calculate. You can calculate and derive a formula. But for an electron, I have derived here. You can do the same thing for a proton. You can do the same thing for a helium ion or alpha particle. It's your choice. Now, so let us solve a question based on this. So it is a very simple question. An electron is accelerated through a potential difference of 100 volt. Then find its wavelength. Very easy question. What will be the wavelength? Lambda of electron will be equal to h by p, where h is Planck's constant, p is momentum. Now, if you do not remember that formula, you can put the value of h. You can put the value of under root of 2me. Here you can also write as h divided by under root of twice of mass times kinetic energy. Or kinetic energy you can write as nothing but charge on electron times potential difference. But we have already calculated and simplified this. What is the simplified version? 12.27 divided by under root of potential difference. So what will be the answer? V is how much? 100 volt. Under root of 100 is how much? 10. So this will be how much? 1.227. Remember, this answer is in what? Which unit? Angstrom. 10 to the power minus 10 meter. That is the wavelength of the electron if you accelerate it through 100 volts. Now let us solve one more question based on wavelength of electron. This question is a little bit complicated, very slightly, not very difficult. We will solve it. Now before I solve, you must try to solve it yourself. Now what is this question? An electron in an atomic orbit. Electron moves around the nucleus according to Bohr model. You must have studied in chemistry. An electron in an atomic orbit has a total energy of minus 3.4 electron volt. Why minus? In case of a satellite, potential energy is negative and kinetic energy is positive, but total energy is negative. That is why they are not moving away. That is why they are bound. So that is why electron is bound to the nucleus, because its total energy is negative. So total energy is this much. Find de Broglie wavelength of this electron. Now remember, here they have not given mass, they have not given velocity, they have not given what is the accelerating voltage, they have not given anything. They have just given the total energy of the electron. Now whenever anything is orbiting around something, like moon is orbiting around earth, electron is orbiting around nucleus, then you must write total energy as kinetic energy plus potential energy. That is your total energy. In case of electron and nucleus, there will be electrostatic potential energy, and in case of earth and moon there will be gravitational potential energy. So here it will be electrical potential energy, it is kinetic energy, this is total energy. And if you remember, in case of orbiting, in case of moon orbiting around earth in a circular orbit, what you can say is that potential energy is minus of 2 times kinetic energy. That you should remember. This is true for the gravitational also, this is true for electrostatics also. So potential energy is minus 2 times kinetic energy, and if you put that here, then you can write total energy as minus of kinetic energy. Meaning magnitude of total energy and magnitude of kinetic energy will be same. Only total energy will be negative, kinetic energy will be positive. There is a minus sign. So we have been given with total energy. So what can be written as kinetic energy of that electron? Kinetic energy can be written as 3.4 electron volts. Correct? Now 3.4 electron volts. Now you may find it that, sir, I will have to calculate in joule, then put the value. No. You see, what was the formula? Lambda equals H by P, or P can be written as root over of twice of mass times kinetic energy. But you need not use this entire. Kinetic energy what? 3.4 electron volt. You need not calculate. You see, what is the significance of kinetic energy being 3.4 electron volt? If I accelerate an electron through a potential difference of how much? 3.4 volts. Then also kinetic energy will be this much. Meaning, instead of using this formula and converting everything, we can simply use lambda equals to 12.27 divided by root over of V, where V is the potential difference through which electron was accelerated. So in this case you can say, sir, this much kinetic energy of electron can be achieved if I accelerate my electron through a potential difference of 3.4 volts. Okay. Now, so here I can simply write, this is in angstrom. We can write 12.27 divided by under root of 3.4 angstrom. That will be your answer. And if you solve this, you will get approximately 6.66 angstrom. So that will be your wavelength of electron moving in a Bohr orbit with total energy minus 3.4 electron volt. Now can you recognize which orbit we are talking about? If you remember, here we are talking about second orbit of hydrogen nucleus. Total energy is how much? Minus 13.6 divided by second orbit. Second orbit divided by 2 square, 4. So minus 13.6 divided by 4. That will get you minus 3.4 electron volts. So actually this electron is moving in the second orbit of Bohr atom. So let us talk about what should be the wavelength of gas molecules. Our surrounding is filled with gases. So what should be the wavelength of a gas molecule at any given temperature? Now we have already studied, according to de Broglie, any particle moving with any velocity has a wave nature. So lambda equals h by p. P is momentum. And momentum can also be written as root over of twice of mass times kinetic energy of that particle. Now, if you look at it closely, this is mass of any gas molecule and this is kinetic energy of that gas molecule. Now remember your kinetic theory of gases chapter. In the kinetic theory of gases, you have studied, what you have studied? That's our kinetic energy of a gas molecule at temperature T can be written as F by 2 K times T. Where what is K? You can write it as Kb. Here F is what? Degree of freedom. F is degree of freedom. In case of a monoatomic molecule, F will be 3. In case of a diatomic molecule, it will be 5. In case of a polyatomic and further, you can take more. So here F is degree of freedom. K times Kb, K subspace B is your Boltzmann constant. What is the value of Boltzmann constant? 1.38 into 10 to the power minus 23 it is joule per Kelvin. That is the value of your Boltzmann constant. And here T is what? Absolute temperature. Absolute temperature you measure in Kelvin. Now, if I put that value here in place of kinetic energy, then what I will get? Lambda will be equal to H divided by 2 will cancel out. You will get under root of mass of the molecule, degree of freedom, Boltzmann constant times T. Now, if you solve it a little bit further, let us say there is a monoatomic gas. This is your standard formula. Lambda for any gas molecule may be written as H, Planck's constant, divided by under root of M. M is the mass. In what unit? This is all ISI unit. So M will be in kg. F is degree of freedom. Kb is Boltzmann constant, which you have written here. And T is absolute temperature, which is written in Kelvin. Okay. So we can modify this or simplify this a little bit for monoatomic molecules. What should be the value for monoatomic? Now remember, for different gas molecules, F will be different, degree of freedom will be different. But Kb is the Boltzmann constant, that is a universal constant. So for monoatomic molecule, when you solve this for monoatomic molecule, you will get it as lambda equals 25.6 divided by under root of capital M times capital T. For monoatomic only. Otherwise you have to solve. For monoatomic I will get this, where M is what? M is your molar mass. So 25 here you can write as M, capital M is nothing but molar mass. For example, helium. Helium is a monoatomic gas. So for helium it will be 2. Molar mass is 2 units, 2 grams. In kg you can write 2 into 10 to the power minus 3 kg. So you will write it as 2 into 10 to the power minus 3 kg in ISI units. And temperature will be written in kelvins. So let us solve a question based on this. What is the question? An electron of mass m and a photon have same energy. There is a photon, there is an electron, both have same kinetic energy. The ratio of their wavelength is. Now before I solve this, pause the video and try to solve it on your own. Okay, let us see what is the solution. How do we solve this? Now, electron has the wavelength how much? Wavelength of electron. Now remember, their energy is same. So lambda of electron can be written as h by, it is momentum, but momentum can also be written as root over of twice of mass times kinetic energy, which is, let us say, E. Here in the options it is E given, so E. Now this is for the electron. What about photon? Lambda of photon. For photon you write energy as how much? Energy of photon can be written as E equals hc divided by lambda. Correct? So lambda of photon is nothing but hc by E. Correct? Now you want ratio of their wavelengths. So lambda of electron divided by lambda of photon. Put it. So what is the ratio? Lambda electron divided by lambda photon will be how much? H, it will cancel out. So you will get E divided by C times root over of twice m E. That's you will get. And here it is E, here it is root over of E. You can further simplify it as 1 by C times root over of E divided by twice m. So if an electron and a photon, they have same energy, then their wavelengths will be in this ratio, 1 by C root over of E by 2m. Which option is the correct option? Second option is the correct choice. So let us quickly revise what are the topics which we studied in today's lecture of de Broglie hypothesis. The first topic which we covered is that any particle, if it is moving, it will have some wavelength, and that wavelength is also written as de Broglie wavelength. So if a particle is moving with momentum p, then de Broglie wavelength lambda is written as h by p, where p is the momentum of particle, h is the Planck's constant, lambda is the wavelength. And we also saw that this can also be written as h divided by root over of twice m times kinetic energy, where kinetic energy is the kinetic energy of that moving particle, m is mass of that particle, h you know is Planck's constant. Second thing we saw that this can be also applied on a charged particle. If a charged particle is accelerated through a voltage difference, potential difference, then it will acquire some velocity. And since it will acquire some velocity, it will have some momentum. Then obviously it should have a de Broglie wavelength. So in case of a charged particle accelerated through a potential difference V, de Broglie wavelength can be written as h divided by root over of twice mass charge q and potential difference V, where V is the potential difference through which that charged particle was accelerated, q is the magnitude of that charge. For example, if you take electron has negative charge, then you cannot say, sir, this is minus, under root minus, how we can solve? No, that q is the magnitude of charge on that charged particle. M is mass of that charged particle. For example, if you take an electron, you will have to write 9.1 into 10 to the power minus 31 kg. So that way. And if you solve this for electrons, for electron, you can write this equation as lambda equals under root of 150 divided by V angstrom. That is the simplified version of this equation. We have pre-put mass of the electron, charge on the electron. We have put here, it is not lambda, sorry, my mistake, it is Planck's constant, like this. Now you know that in the environment there are a lot of gases. So we also took a look at how we can apply de Broglie wavelength on the molecules of the gases moving around in the environment. So what we can write? Third topic which we saw, lambda equals h divided by under root of f m kb times capital T, where f was your degree of freedom. For monatomic it is 3, for diatomic it is 5, like that. Mass is m is the mass of the molecule in ISI units. kb is your Boltzmann constant, and T is your absolute temperature. Absolute temperature meaning in Kelvin. For example, I said 20 degrees Celsius. That is not absolute temperature. You will have to write 273 plus 20, 293 Kelvin. So you should always write T in Kelvin. So these are the three things which we studied in today's lecture. I hope you all have understood these topics well. In the next lecture, we will talk about the Davison and Germer experiment. Davison and Germer experiment actually proved the de Broglie hypothesis. Remember, de Broglie himself did not offer any mathematical or practical proof of his hypothesis. So Davison and Germer proved de Broglie hypothesis by doing experiments. So that experiment we will see in the next lecture. Until then, keep revising your topics and try to solve more and more questions on the covered topics.